Yo, testing 1, 2. I always gotta make sure my mic working because y'all know I struggle stream sometime. Yo, what's going on? I appreciate everybody who is tuning into this live stream. As always, a big salute to you. I'm Marcus, and here, y'all know what it is. It's Fridays. We do attorney reactions to current events, trending news, things that are interesting, things that you all email me. That's what we jump on here and talk about. As always, hey, if you get some value out of this content, if you like it, I invite you to like, share, subscribe, comment. If you dislike it, hit the dislike button. It's all good over here. We don't take anything too personal. Now, I always got to give out the disclaimer. I am a licensed attorney, but I'm not your attorney, so this isn't legal, financial advice. I just give my opinion and takes on topics and current events. If you're looking for a professional, don't ever listen to a talking head on YouTube, even if it's me. Find a professional in your area. But after today's video, you need to make sure that they are what the hell they say they are, because people be out here capping a lot and people lie all the damn time. Now, this video is cool because I used to have guests on all the time, and then I was like, you know what? I just got tired, y'all. But I have a guest on. This is the second attorney that I had on the show. I typically don't have attorneys on when I do have guests for a few reasons. I'll talk about that at a later time. But I want to give this attorney their credit. First of all, y'all know I'm a very humble person, but when it comes to this counsel thing, this attorney at law, this practitioner thing, I'm kind of arrogant because it just is what it is. Your boy been doing this for a while. But the person who's going to be on today is a high-speed attorney. Her name is Amber Porter. And actually, if I had to go against her in a trial, I would actually have to really prepare my ass off. And trust me, I don't say that about anybody. Very decorated. She is a soldier. She is an attorney. She has vast amount of experience and executive leadership. One of the things that's even more important is she is an author, and I would personally consider her to be a money finance expert. We know some of the same people in the same circles. It's say debt-free dad for a reason, y'all. I was talking about money before I started doing these attorney reactions, but nobody want to hear about money. But that's neither here nor there. But without further ado, I want to invite our guest on. I'm going to put her link tree across the bottom so you can go check out more of her content if you are interested. And without further ado, let's go ahead and invite official co-counsel to the show, Amber Porter. What is going on with you, AP? What is the deal?
Hi, how's it going? Love the AP, I like nicknames.
Okay, yeah, no, it just came out and flows so easily. Sorry about that. It flows so easily. So how's everything going with you today?
Fantastic. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I'm very grateful that you were taking out the time to just bless the channel, bless the subscribers, everybody, so we can talk about these things. Now, these are cold. I haven't shown you any of these videos. So y'all are really going to get her real reaction and take to these videos. I maybe watched a few of them, but I generally just try not to watch them because I want y'all to get the straightforward reaction. Before we dive in, you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, in addition to what I said with you being an accomplished attorney and author. Go ahead, let them know what's going on.
Sure. So I've been an attorney for about 11 years. Love what I do. I'm also a soldier, like Marcus mentioned. Love being an Army officer. Been in the Army for about 7 years. And also, I am a world traveler, wrote a few books. And like Marcus mentioned, I'm a money finance person. I was on Bigger Pockets Money. And I wrote a book about how to become a millionaire. So, yeah. And currently looking to do some more travel here in the future, hopefully.
Okay, interesting. We got a story about an airline that'll be quite interesting. Before we dive in, I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat, but a special shout out to the first comment of the day. Shout out to Loud Room Reacts. They have interesting, very good content over there, reacting to current events, trending news. So if y'all interested, go check out their channel. And I want to give them an official round of applause for dropping that first comment for us. All right, so we are going to go ahead and dive in. Let me check out all these comments, especially Dr. Love. He was working. Dr. Love is wild. I can't wait. I put his picture up there on the thumbnail because everybody saw it and knew immediately. They was like, "Oh yeah, this dude full of it." So I thought that was the best picture to put on the thumbnail. Yeah, time to see the fake doctor. All right, so let's go ahead, jump into this first video. We're gonna get you a clean reaction and see what's good. Let's go ahead and dive in.
Indicator family says squatters have taken over their childhood home just days before it was supposed to be sold.
Our Chase Howell spoke with a family who says the situation has been heartbreaking.
We throwing a party. You know what time it is.
From inviting people on Facebook to pool parties to posting videos on social media from inside this $500,000 home.
All right, real quick, I gotta take a pause for the calls, and Amber, we occasionally gotta take pause because YouTube is a little funky if you play videos all the way through. But this house is immaculate. Okay, my house don't look like this. And I got a nice house. This is a very immaculate, beautiful neighborhood. Two, soon as they showed the videos at the beginning, I already know that if this was me, it's going to be a problem if they were squatting in my house. So what are your initial takes seeing the residents and seeing the TikTok, the videos that these people have posted up and inviting people to the pool party at the house? What's your initial thoughts?
I mean, it's just kind of wild that nobody immediately called the police when they saw them walk into the home. I mean, a house like this in this neighborhood, I mean, I can't imagine that.
I'm not saying that you can like, hey, I know I got a son. I say all the time, if you see my son in the street, he look like a YN, he dreads, all that. But I'm not saying somebody who looks like a YN or a Pookie and Ray Ray can't have a house like this. But if you're the neighbors and you know who was there before, I agree completely. Like something should have gave you a little bit of a cause to pause. Let's go and finish checking out the rest of this video.
One family says squatters have taken over.
It is a nightmare. These videos and advertisements are so far-reaching that we received a call this morning from someone in Florida that said, hey, seen your dad's property on the internet.
Lisa, Kevin, Marcus, and Marlene grew up in the home. They say it was just last week their dad passed away. And not even 48 hours later, the squatters came in like thieves in the night and took over their childhood home.
It pisses me off tremendously.
After learning about the squatters, the siblings called the police. And according to the incident report, the people inside the home supplied a lease. Then later that same day, Kevin went to check on the house and was met by a group of guys.
They started making threats against my life, and one of them told his friend to go get something, and he came back with a rifle in the doorway.
I'm sorry, this isn't funny. I'm laughing because this is actually one of the craziest squatter stories. Their house, this nice home, father passed away, got taken over by some straight hood guys. This is probably one of the craziest squatter stories that I've heard. What's your take?
I mean, first of all, the fake lease, anybody can download a lease from Adobe. So that's kind of funny that they actually tried to like show like some legal documentation here, but rifles, oh my gosh, talk about a hostile takeover.
Right. It actually is probably counter to what I think I would probably do, but it's actually advantageous that they called the authorities and didn't handle it in a way that I can see a lot of people probably handle it. Like the house my mama left me, my mama house? Nah, I don't know. I'm going to try to do things the right way, but I'm going to be honest, it would be very, very difficult for me.
He didn't point it at me, but they made threats against my life and made it known that I might not walk out of there.
I went up to the front door to see if anyone was home for an interview and to see the lease, but no one answered. A little later, I saw a car pulling out of the driveway, and I met them in the street.
Do you live here at all? You don't? Do you know who does? Are they home? Okay, because I'm trying to get a hold of them because people are trying to say that basically they're squatting in the house. Do you have the person's number that lives there? You don't? All right, you want to go on camera to talk about it?
I'm hearing my father's
Close that
voice.
door quick.
Marcus says he's frustrated, not only as one of the homeowners, but as a lawyer.
They have the right Marcus in this situation. Shout out to that Marcus who's an attorney, because this Marcus, like, I don't know, bro. Like, I'm gonna be honest. I always advise everybody handle things the legal way, but I think it's very difficult when you have a loss of a parent. They left you at home, and not even a week went by, and you can't go in there, and there's some chuckleheads in the place. Like, I don't know. I get it. Hey, everybody do the right thing, but hey, you in the words of several famous rappers, people act like they stopped making guns when they made yours. That's not how it works, and they could come across somebody who won't be about them games. You know, they pull out a rifle and they not pointed at nobody. The wrong person see you with a rifle, it could be really, really, really problematic. What do you think about that so far?
I think it's dangerous for the reporter. I mean, like from what I just saw, I mean, just rolling up to someone's house, I'm here to see the lease. It's like, sir, who are you?
Right.
That's really dangerous.
Yeah, he did look a little reserved. I actually seen a case that was a squatter in New York City. Same situation, home from a deceased loved one. And they went to the condo, and the squatters ended up deleting this lady, like putting her in the bag, stealing her their car, driving the car. So these stories can actually go very, very bad. Let's finish watching this story. I'm going to give a little bit of a legal breakdown because they clearly need to update their laws. We're going to talk about some states that did update their laws to circumvent this type of buffoonery.
He says he's heard about cases like this, but never thought it would happen to him.
It's infuriating to see people in that home destroying it and partying and inviting other strangers into that home.
And as we were sitting around talking after the interview, Lisa received a voicemail from the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office.
He now has 3 days, so not including the weekends, he has until Monday to make an answer.
Yes, DeKalb County. Yes, that's how I feel.
In DeKalb County, Chase Howell, 11 Alive News.
What a frustrating.
All right, so it looked like this story might end favorably for them. It's pretty terrible. Squatter laws, because I actually did the research on this, because I think these stories are asinine. They started like this was back in the day when people would go out into the woods and hunt and cattle. That's where it's founded at. Now, squatter laws are generally more favorable to the actual squatter. Squatter moves in. Law enforcement have been told, like, yo, this is a landlord-tenant issue, so we can't evict them. I've seen cases where homeowners went in, tried to change the locks and remove the squatters, and the homeowner, rightful homeowner, is the person that got locked up. Now, hey, shout out to Florida. I'm not a big fan of some of the things that go on in Florida, but Florida was one of the very few states that were first in changing their squatter laws. They essentially made squatting a low-level felony, and they also made it a felony to produce false documentation that purports to be a valid lease or something like that. So now other states are trying to play catch up. I almost had a squatter situation I told you all about, and it was in New York with a property that belonged to my grandmother. And I was grateful it didn't work out that way. There's a lot of cousins in the co-op city, but that's a whole nother story. I was grateful that it didn't work out that way. But it could be a dangerous situation. Don't react on your instinct, because if somebody in your shit, I already know that you're going to want to get them up out of there. Try to handle it the professional way. That's the best way. What you think?
I mean, from a legal perspective, I always thought that it was sort of interesting that, if you sort of hostily take over a property that's vacant and it's sort of open and notorious for a certain period of time, it's yours. And so the law has been like that for a number of years. And, until it changes, you really do have to go through the court system to get back the property that's yours. Obviously, shooting somebody or coming in there and taking back your property is a no-go.
Right.
So it's crazy. You really just cannot have vacant properties. Unfortunately, when someone passes away, you immediately need to go in, reclaim the property and sell it or whatever. But vacancies are not good.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I wanted to just check out this comment real here from Easter Battle. How long ago was this? DeSantis changed the laws and the police can take them out now in Florida. Hey, you called it. That's exactly Florida was one. Florida was first on two laws that I think I agree with. One we probably won't dive into, but they were first on this law. Shout out to Florida. They were first on this law, which I think it was right, making it a felony and making it a felony to show a fake lease. And Florida also was first on passing a law that limits alimony. Alimony starts after, I think, 5 years. So if you were married to somebody for 2 years, it's a no-go. You have to be married for at least a certain amount of years. Then it can go, you're entitled to alimony longer as those marriage years. Year 5, you can get it. Year 7 allows you to this many years. Year 10. And I thought that was a good direction. I know some people won't agree with DFD on that one, but I thought that Florida was on the front line of the alimony adjustment. And when it comes to squatters, we need to change those laws because it's dangerous as hell. Shout out to everybody in the chat too, all the comments. Maddie, I appreciate you for tuning in. Everybody who is in the comments. Now let's go ahead. We're going to check out this next story. Now this next story is interesting because it's about travel. One is an airline that I never rode on in my life. So I don't know. Maybe some of you all rode this airline. If you did, y'all let me know if y'all see.
Channel 2 consumer advisor Clark Howard has a warning for customers of an airline about bogus fees. Channel 2 investigative reporter Ashley Lincoln is live in the newsroom with this exclusive story and the red flags Clark says travelers need to look out for.
A lot of red flags, Linda. We were the first to tell you about a customer who says he was told he could not aboard a Frontier flight unless he paid a gate agent. Clark told me if you're being told to pay for anything related to a flight with a digital wallet like Cash App, it's likely not legitimate.
All right, initial thoughts, right there. Before we even watch, what's your initial thoughts?
I really dislike for-profit. I call it like for-profit airlines.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
Like Spirit and Frontier. I just feel like it's not legitimate at the point where you're charging me $50 for a flight, but it may or may not go and it may or may not be safe. And then I have to pay $100 for every single thing. You might as well just get on United Airlines at that point. So
right.
I absolutely would not be cash apping anyone at the point where I'm at the airport. Crazy.
Real talk. I'm just be honest. I wish somebody would be like, you can't get on this flight unless you cash at me. I'd be like, man, what the hell? If you don't get out of my face, like, I don't think that would be well received by anybody, but I think that's an absolutely crazy story. And it's given I don't know. I don't want to say, how could I put this? No shade to Spirit.
Shout out to Lotto.
Yeah, like Spirit is like Carnival cruises. If you want to go and have a good time and party, go on Carnival. Okay, it's going to be weed smoking. It's going to be weed smoking. And so I've never been on Frontier, but I'm kind of getting Carnival cruise. Spirit vibes. Not that there's nothing wrong with Spirit, but hey, I've flown a Spirit flight before, and I was immediately upset. Was like, nah, I can't do this unless it's like a 45-minute hour flight. Maybe I think about it. All right, let's go ahead and finish watching this video to see how these airline operators are trying to finesse these passengers.
The girl said that they were going to close the door in 5 minutes. Unless I gave them the Cash App card.
He is not alone. Several Frontier Airlines passengers say they've encountered the same thing.
In her words, I don't give a damn what you're in, as long as you have my damn money.
They asking me for money to get on the plane that I already paid for.
Both Frontier passengers told me gate agents demanded they pay them via Cash App before being allowed to board their flight.
He said, we're going to close the door in 5 minutes, and if I didn't pay the $25 fee, then I would not be allowed on the plane.
You have Cash App? Look, I ain't got no money.
You think they should be fired?
They should be fired.
Frontier has a trust problem.
Channel 2 consumer advisor Clark Howard says if any airline employee asks you to pay via a digital wallet, that's a red flag.
The money wasn't going in Frontier's pockets. It was being stolen from the customer's pockets, allegedly, into the employees' pockets.
All right, real quick. Do you think that a lot of people actually pay this? Do you think that a lot of people were just like...
No, I think they did, because how Frontier works is oh, well, if you're late, you got to pay this, you know, for your bag, you pay this for the fees. It's like all these fees. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, oh, maybe I didn't pay the $50 or whatever it is for the, you know, the transportation fee.
Okay. So it's okay. So Frontier is one of those models where, like, okay, if you want to breathe, you need to pay. Okay. So if you're late, you can still board potentially for a certain fee. That's why people probably were paying it, because it was consistent with what their business model is.
Exactly.
Okay. That's actually wild. I didn't know that. I was like, what? I paid online and you asking me for a Cash App? Get out of here, bro. Now, to be fair though, once they asked for Cash App, I think for some people that probably would have triggered it. But I get how people are if you're trying to get a flight to go somewhere, time is crunched. Sometimes you rather just go ahead and be like, okay, here, whatever. Here's the $25. Let me get on this flight because I don't want to miss it because I'm going to California from DC or something like that. So I can get how people are pressured into doing that. But me, I'd have raised hell about it immediately. What do you think you would have did? You would have raised hell about it immediately or just paid it and talked about it on the back end?
I mean, I don't fly airlines that don't have a first class. So can't say. If the airline itself does not have the option for first class, I'm not buying a ticket with them. So
hey, real quick, hey, shout out to Amber Porter. Hey, I feel you. Once you do first class, once you fly first class, you never gonna want to fly anything. Like once you go to a game and you sit like in great seats or the luxury box, you're gonna be like, man, I don't know if I want to go back there with the 25. Hey, shout out to you for first class.
I can't possibly sit in gym pop, but
right. Facts. That's hilarious. Let's go and wrap this video up, then jump into the next one.
Frontier customer service told their passenger, Jermaine Koger, the $25 charge was likely for an airport assistance fee. But Koger says he didn't make that request and believes employees are taking advantage of Frontier's program by having unknowing passengers deposit money into their personal accounts.
I just thought everything was unusual.
Frontier's website says it only accepts Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. And it does not accept digital wallet payments like Apple Pay and Venmo. Frontier has not responded to Channel 2's request for a comment. Clark says anytime you buy a ticket with Frontier, be on the lookout for fees.
When you buy an airline ticket on Frontier, you have given them a license to your wallet.
I work hard for my little coins, and it's just crazy.
And Koger says Frontier did reimburse him the $25 and issued him a $150 voucher, but the company has not issued him a refund for the $32 transfer. Now, Roach, the other customer, says he's hired an attorney regarding his case. In the newsroom, Ashley Lincoln, Channel 2 Action News.
I don't know. Would you, someone comes in your office, Amber, with this case, what are you saying to them?
Listen, it's de minimis, right? $32. You're going to hire an attorney and pay them to get $32 back. I mean, what is the real damage? I don't see how there's a cause of action here. You paid somebody, it's fraud, but $30? I mean, I don't see it.
The only thing I could think of, and I still wouldn't do it because it would be too difficult, if they could actually establish a class for a class action lawsuit. But now you're going down the road of, we have to prove that this conduct happened to this many people. And me personally, I'm not willing to leverage that much resources for people who will finesse $25, $35 a pop. So I agree with that. This is somebody who I would be like, you know what? Hey, I'm sorry this happened to you, but I'm respectfully going to decline. Let's check out some of these comments real quick. I don't like them to get too far ahead before we go to the next video. The next video is going to be right down your alley as a prosecutor. Let's check out the comments. Then I'll talk about some of the gross stuff you prosecuted as a prosecutor. And then we're going to talk about this next story that I thought was interesting. Can they be refunded on the taxes and utilities for the length of the squatter stay? I have seen stories, and rightfully so. You have a vacant house. Just because your house is vacant, it doesn't mean that the utilities are just not paid. You are responsible for paying those utilities. I've seen stories where squatters were actually sued in small claims court for the amount of utilities during the time that they were there. But I'm gonna keep it a buck. We covered a story maybe a week or two ago where this guy wanted the squatters out so bad, he paid them to leave. It was something like $4,000 that he paid them to leave because the amount of time it would have took him to get through the legal process, he would have lost that money because he was trying to sell the house and it would have just been on the market. He would have been having to pay that monthly mortgage. Let's see, a lot of people paid that. They've probably been racking up. I agree 100%. Okay, Amber, Delta. Hey, shout out to Delta. Shout out to Delta. Hey, Delta is one of my favorite airlines. And I got Delta merch, a plane in my office, actually. So shout out to Delta.
A big flex I'll say is Qatar Airways. Got to do the Qatar Q suites. Just
Okay. Hey, when I it's something I gotta try out when I make my trip.
Got to.
It's different though, you know, like when you got kids and you traveling and me and my kids going somewhere. Like what I have done is like I've gotten first class and like they're older now. So I'd be like, nah, man, y'all ain't got no job. Y'all can stay back there. And don't come up here bother me because I'm telling on you too. So that's something that is an option. Frontier is right, you know. Spirit's little bad cousin. They both are city buses. They both are city buses with wings. That's hilarious. That is funny. Let's see. Okay, Orlando Miners breakdown of Spirit Airlines. I didn't see Orlando Miners breakdown of Spirit Airlines, but I'm pretty sure that it was actually hilarious. Now, let's take a look at this next story. Before we look at it, I want to just talk a little bit about your background. As a prosecutor, you did a lot with cases regarding sexual assault and those types of things. So, as a defense attorney, I've represented persons charged with that, and it's actually discussed. Like after like 4 or 5 cases like that, I was like, y'all know what? I got enough pull here. Give that to somebody else. Give me the money launderers or the murderers or something to that effect. So let me know what you think about this next story. I'm gonna let it play through. Take maybe an intermittent pause, but I want you to give your feedback first. Shout out to the name of this operation. It's called Operation Fool Around and Find Out. I'd like to think of Operation Fuck Around and Find Out, but either way, dope name for operation. Let me know your take on this. Let's go ahead and get it queued up.
Thanks for watching at noon. I'm Emerald Morrow in for Frank Wiley. First this afternoon, hundreds of arrests in a Polk County sting. Sheriff Grady Judd just announced the results of Operation Fool Around and Find Out, a 9-day undercover investigation with local, state, and federal agents. Among those arrested, a 20-year Air Force veteran and a former NFL player. 10 Tampa Bay's Nick Valturo reports.
Yeah, that conference wrapped up just around 11 o'clock, and Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd calling this 9-day sting operation one of the most successful in department history, with 255 criminals behind bars. And they had a Biggs Rogues gallery of those arrested. The numbers are staggering. 141 Johns charged with soliciting prostitutes, 93 others charged with offering to commit prostitution, and buried in those arrests, 4 victims of human trafficking identified immediately and offered help and services from local support organizations. Even more alarming, 11 child predators arrested for traveling to meet what they thought were minors for sex or other child sex-related crimes. Sheriff Judd says they were hunting children online, but instead met undercover detectives.
All right, real quick, what's your initial thought on Operation Fool Around and Find Out?
I mean, I love it. It's just like the show To Catch a Predator, right? So it's, you know, it's real life, you know. I like it. You know, whether or not it will legally stand up in court is a different thing, but you know, public embarrassment is nice.
Yeah. I agree with that. It's interesting because I have mixed reactions about the legalities of prostitution in general. There's somebody who lived overseas and they were like, oh, it's legal if you do it this way, or some states it's legal if you do it this way. When it's sanctioned by the government, they put mechanisms in place to make sure that there's no public health issue that stems from it. They kind of put these mechanisms in place. I mean, keep it a buck. Overseas, most of that shit is run by like criminal organizations who are able to get their foot in the ground to be able to get those legitimate business established. But at least when it's run by the government, there's mechanisms in place to make sure that it's not vulnerable children. Everybody is consenting adults. There's no public health issues. So I kind of understand it from that point. I understand both sides of the spectrum. I will tell you, I think in states where it's illegal, the only way to put a dent in it is by targeting the actual consumers more so than you target the actual. Because if you can stop the consumers from coming, now of course they'll relocate. We kind of know how that goes, but it's so many people involved in these organizations. It's actually crazy work how many levels of organizations and structures and leaderships it is. So you get rid of one John, 5 more pop up. You arrest one girl, 5 more pop up. In situations where I've seen in law enforcement, it's normally more effective when they do a sting that targets both customers and the persons who are, offering the services. That's just kind of my take on it. But I definitely a fan of it. Shout out to all the yahoos who got caught. The Air Force guy, well deserving. NFL guy, well deserving. I don't know if they named them in this video, but if they do, I'm not mad at them.
This wasn't just local authorities. Multiple agencies worked together: Homeland Security, ICE, and several sheriff offices across Florida. Sheriff Judd says 36 of those arrested are in the country illegally. Judd also said that 26 had zero documentation whatsoever. They are facing additional federal charges along with deportation.
They're the most despicable. And I can tell you that if we didn't make any of these arrests and only had one child predator we took out of circulation, all of the resources would have been worth it.
Now, Sheriff Judd certainly didn't mince words today, calling this a stark warning to anyone who thinks about coming to Polk County and committing crimes. Fool around and find out. Well, that's what Judd says these criminals did, and now they are paying the price. Reporting in Polk County, Nick Volturo, 10 Tampa Bay.
More than 24 additional North Texas teachers are under investigation.
Let's pause that. I think that's I like that story. I like that story. I like that many arrests. Part of it is a deterrent. When you make a impactful multitude of arrests like that, people think 2 or 3 times before they spin the block thinking they're going to do something shady. So I think overall that is just a great story. You got anything before we move on?
I have a friend actually whose daughter is underage, and whenever grown men message her, she reports it to the FBI. And so it's actually legit, and she's doing it on her own, and it's crazy. Like the kids and everybody's been catch a predator. It's crazy. I do think that we have to cut down on child predators. I do think that it's a rampant issue.
Right.
I agree. So
yeah, I agree 100%. Now we're going to take a quick channel pivot, and we're going to start talking about fake professionals. Now, a few of these stories I covered. I talked about the teachers, the veneer tech. I don't really think I went in on Dr. Love. Dr. Love is actually wow. I've never seen his actual interview after he was removed from his so-called medical facility. It was fun. It was hilarious. We actually gonna watch that. But we're going to take a look at 3 professions before we get into our story. We're going to talk about teachers and what these teachers had going on. And there was a little gamesmanship, a little bit of bogusness going on with the teachers. We're going to pivot to the veneer techs, which is crazy work. And then we are going to pivot to Dr. Love before we jump into our main story. But I want y'all to pay attention to each story because I think that all of these stories can't be judged equally. I want to get through the stories, then we're going to jump in and talk about it. So let's go ahead and cue up the next story. and we're going to talk about it and get your take on this.
For allegedly cheating to get an additional North Texas teachers are under investigation for allegedly cheating to get their certifications. The total involved statewide is now roughly 160. Fox 4's Alex Boyer live with details. Alex.
Hi, Clarice. And 25 additional North Texas teachers have now been implicated in that cheating scandal. And several new North Texas school districts have also been added to that list. It is also worth noting, though, that the updated list does not conclusively represent the educators' current employment. Nearly half of the 60 teachers added to the list were North Texas educators, bringing the total number of flagged North Texas teachers up to 75. New school districts added to the list include Plano, Alvarado, Granbury, Keene, Lake Dallas, and Maypearl ISDs. The list also includes additional teachers from Fort Worth and Dallas.
I'm glad to know that the investigation has continued.
Rena Honey is the president of Alliance AFT, the union representing some 4,000 Dallas educators. She's disappointed by the recent development.
It just makes me very sad to see that we are at a place where people feel like they have to resort to that type of behavior. We never condone anything like cheating at all.
In December.
All right, so real quick, Amber, I'm going to give a little bit of context because we talked about this story when the vast majority of the 100 went down. Long story short, and we're going to get through this video. Shout out to everybody in the comments. Teachers actually went to school and graduated with the essential educational background that they would need to become teachers, but they could not pass their credentialing exam. So a couple of school officials essentially had a scheme where it was pay to play. You give us some money, we'll finesse the system where someone else takes your exam. Once you get this exam scored, now you're in here teaching, and now everybody is getting tied up. And I want to believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I'm accurate on this, but the person who was kind of heading up this scheme made over $1 million in total by charging people to take these credentialing tests. So right now, before we get through the rest of your video, what are your initial thoughts on that?
I mean, I think the issue here is how can you hold students to a standard of not cheating in your class when you're cheating on your certification, right? You know, I don't know how difficult these certifications are and what you have to do to get them. So I can't really comment on, you know, whether or not the cheating was warranted. Probably not. I think you should be properly certified to teach children. But you know, it's just sort of odd that it was so rampant.
Right. I agree with that. Let's go ahead and get through the rest of the video. We're gonna get through the rest of the video. We're gonna take a look at the comments, and then I'm gonna toss something out at you because I want to know your take. Because I got beat up in the comments for I thought something different should apply to these teachers as opposed to the veneer techs. And some people came for me in the comments. So let's go and finish up, and then we're going to talk about it.
The Texas Education Agency flagged educators who failed their certification exam on their first attempt, but then suddenly passed after retaking it in the Houston area. The TEA launched an investigation and identified teachers with suspicious test-taking patterns. Investigators said many teacher candidates paid $2,500 each to have a proxy take their exam and ensure a passing score. Vincent Grayson, a longtime Houston ISD basketball coach, accused of orchestrating the operation. The TEA notes that the districts reflect the most recent place of employment, so it's possible some educators may have changed jobs or been removed from employment. Honey has this message for concerned parents and teachers.
Be assured in Dallas ISD that most all of the educators are there because they want to. They've gone about their credentialing the correct way. They want to be with your children. They love them, and they want to see that success.
And a Plano ISD spokesperson told me this afternoon that the teacher listed in the report is not a current employee with the district. Meanwhile, the State Board for Educator Certification will determine possible sanctions for those implicated teachers. The TEA continues to investigate, which means that there could be more educators added to that list.
Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. Let's go and check out some of these comments. We got one here on Dr. Love. He was smart. That's how he got all the qualifications from the state of Florida. He outsmarted them. I don't know if you've seen that interview. I'm not gonna say Dr. Love was smart. I won't say he's dumb, but that interview gave me cause to pause. Everybody's fired. Everybody is fired once I'm done with the investigation. Okay, hey, shout out to you, Tony. You may be one who's going to disagree, but with my position. The reason why I'm firing everybody is either you are too incompetent for this to happen, or you were annoyed. Clean slate, everybody's got to go. I don't disagree with that. Can lawyers be disbarred for using AI? It seems like people have not learned. I'm gonna put a pin in that one. We're gonna talk about that. There's actually some, not case law, but some opinions from state bars that talks about AI, attorneys' use of AI, how AI was actually used, and it's extremely flawed. And I just don't think that AI will impact our profession because, I mean, one, judges and politicians won't let it because a lot of them are attorneys too, but we're going to dive into that. Okay, so I can see some, hey, everybody's fired. This is unacceptable. But this was the take that I had. Now we're going to look at veneer text, but I want to point out this distinction now. Veneer text and these teachers at a bare minimum actually went to college and graduated for the purposes of they are able to sit for the test. That means they have the educational background. So this was my take. I look at this scenario a little bit different than veneer text. The veneer techs are people who they've never been to dentistry school. They have no medical experience. They took a 2-hour course and now they're gluing chiclet bubblegum pieces on people's teeth to make them look like they white, and people getting bacteria. You can get bacteria infection in your mouth that can affect your eye, your brain. Like, that's a real physical invasion. Now, I'm not saying your children's education isn't paramount, but I make the distinction because they asked me, well, how would you deal with this as a prosecutor? Well, if people have been teaching, one, I would need to know how long were they teaching? They've been teaching with these bogus exams. How long have they been teaching? And how have they been performing? Have they been performing at a satisfactory level, above satisfactory, below satisfactory? Because as a matter of course, when most people commit fraud, it's to do something where they can really make a bag. To commit fraud, to go teach kids in the elementary school in a district that's probably understaffed. A lot of those videos that had Barbara Bush, sorry, she looked like Barbara Bush, but a lot of those videos had younger Black children in them. Those schools are probably understaffed. If the teacher passed college, they graduated college, they took the exam, they failed it, they did this BS, but I can look at their track record and they're performing at the standard or above the standard. Me as a prosecutor, if I'm looking at their school district and I'm like, there's already a shortage of teachers. If we fire this, can the school actually stand the bandwidth of us firing all of these people, pulling all of these people out? I think I would give some deference to say, hey, can we work something out where they have 12 months? You can continue to perform at your job. You'll do so at a reduced rate of pay because you shouldn't be getting paid as an actual teacher if you are a teacher, but you can still perform to some degree, and you got a 12-month period to pass this exam. If you pass this exam after whatever, 6 months of successful or 12 months of successfully working, now you can be reinstated with your teacher salary, blah, blah. I'm willing to work something out because at a bare minimum, they have the educational background. Do you think that's a fair distinction? How would you look at this if this landed on your desk as a prosecutor and they're like, what do you want to do with these people? I know there's a lot of factors we don't know, but what is your thought on it?
So first, my mom's a teacher and just told me about the test. So she just sent me a message. Shout out to my mom. She says that these tests are particularly difficult to pass, that actually the math on there is pretty advanced and difficult. and essentially like the questions may not match up with the grade. So like if you're a second grade teacher, you may have some sort of trigonometry or something that may not even be relevant to what you're teaching. So,
Right.
I mean, I think with that additional information, I just don't see how it could be prosecuted, especially like you said, where there's a teacher's crises and, you know, it's just more difficult for us to find people to replace these individuals. I think they should look into the test and try to figure out whether the test is fair and how to make it, you know, how to make it where people can reasonably pass.
Yeah, I agree. And hey, shout out to your mother for providing that information, because I don't know the complexity of the test, but shit, I probably couldn't pass the damn math problems. I probably couldn't pass the math problems on that test. But I think they deserve a little bit more deference than someone like a veneer tech who you just didn't do shit. You woke up and rolled out of bed one day and was like, yo, they fixing teeth on TikTok for $2,500. I'm doing it. Or Dr. Love, who woke up one day and was like, you know what? I want to specialize in holistic woman's private parts examination, and I look like I'm 6. Like, those guys, you probably should go to jail. I feel like there's more. Not saying your child's education is important, and if a teacher is underperforming, get them up out of there. But if they meet certain criteria, I agree. Part of being a prosecutor is you got to have a little bit of flex. You can't treat everybody the same in every situation, you know. So that was kind of my take on that situation. You got anything else on that one?
No, I'm good.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and pivot to. Hold on, real quick. Do we want to give me 1 second? Let me see something. Every now and then I have a little. I thought I had everything lined up, but for some reason it's out of order. Actually, what we'll do is we kind of know what the deal was with the veneer text. They kind of just sucked in general. So we're going to pivot from the teachers and we're going to get to good old Dr. Love. And I actually have an update on Dr. Love, what he's been up to lately, as of recently, the last few years. Excuse me. But let's go ahead, dive in. I'm going to get this Dr. Love video up. I'm going to pull the video up, but before we play it, I'm going to lay the background because this is actually his interview after he was arrested for impersonating a doctor. Come on now.
Malachi Love Robinson, the teen, marched out of his Florida clinic in handcuffs.
All right. So, again, bogus holistic doctor. You can see on the screen right now, this is just me. I'm going to just have to take a pause for the cause here. Real quick on the screen, okay? If you go in your doctor's office and he has a mohawk and the damn picture on the wall, he's like this, you should probably get the hell out of there with, hey, if I went to my neurosurgeon and he had this picture on the wall and he's like this, like he coloring, kicking his feet, laying on his stomach, I'm getting the hell out of there. So I actually just find it crazy that anybody saw this picture on the wall and didn't question anything about it, just for me personally. But bogus doctor got arrested. After he got arrested, he agreed to do this interview. Now, somebody in the comments said he was outsmarted everyone. He was able to get a lot of certifications from the state of Florida. When I saw this interview, all I saw was a lot of statements against his interest that would and probably did kick him in his ass during his negotiations on how he resolved this matter. So go ahead, let's check this out. Check out his interview, and then we're going to talk about this and jump into our main topic of bogus attorneys.
Malachi, they say you've been practicing medicine without a license.
Sitting down with ABC News overnight, released from jail early Wednesday morning on a $21,000 bail after being busted in a sting operation in West Palm Beach, caught allegedly giving a medical exam to an undercover officer.
Are you a doctor of anything? Anything at all?
I do currently hold a PhD in what I don't feel comfortable disclosing because that is not the issue here.
But you
the
treat
issue
people
that
at your
I face
office.
now
Hold it.
is accusations.
The 18-year-old indeed facing serious accusations from police, 7, including grand theft, and allegedly practicing medicine without a license. And last month, he proudly showed off his medical center to our affiliate, WPFB.
That shit is crazy. What is your initial take on this story when you first heard about it? I just think it's crazy. And this picture on the screen, I just can't unsee it as the key focal point of the craziness. This was the picture hanging on the wall in his office.
I mean, I thought it was wild years ago when I saw it, but now as an attorney, I mean, it's just fraud. I mean, it's just regular fraud. Like, I mean, it's the most extreme fraud that you can have, I think.
Yeah, it is. But I also think when you have like someone who's like a doctor, someone who's a veneer tech, there's a physical invasiveness that, to me, it exacerbates. It makes it more worse. Like if I go carry my car to a shop and somebody's not a certified mechanic, I'm like, did they fix my shit? Is my car? Yeah. Are my brakes cool? But when somebody's doing something to your actual physical person, working your loved ones, the veneer tech, it was people actually taking like their children, teenage children there to get there. It was somebody who probably took their like elderly grandmother, I think we'll see in this story, to go see this Yahoo. So I think the physical nature of the intrusion for me actually elevates it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think putting someone in physical harm is the issue. I mean, that's why doctors and lawyers are the most, it's a high level position because life and liberty is in our hands.
Facts. I agree. Let's go and finish checking out Dr. Mohawk.
This is the New Birthing Life Medical Center.
But peel back the tape, and the sign on the door has his name and these two crucial letters, MD.
That sign on the door was actually due to be changed. There are many types of degrees out there that hold the title as doctor, whether they are a physicist or an engineer. Just because someone has the title doctor in front of their name does not necessarily imply MD.
Have you had training?
I have shadowed many doctors.
Okay. See, this is why I always say this. When Big U got arrested, I was like, don't go live. When you are accused of doing something, just shut up. Don't talk to anybody. I'm an attorney. And if y'all ever heard DFD getting caught up doing something dumb, I ain't saying shit. I'm going to advise my counsel and let them talk for me. What he said in that moment made no sense. Hey, there are many types of doctors out there, engineers, doctors of science, doctors, PhDs. It doesn't mean you're a medical doctor. I actually agree with that statement, but this Yahoo had MD behind his name. So the M is for medical. Yahoo is not a music doctor. So this is why generally it's a bad thing. Do you have experience? I've shadowed a lot of doctors. I honestly think that's cap. He probably didn't shadow anybody. I mean, I don't know. I can't test the validity of it, but it's probably cap.
I have shadowed many doctors.
You're saying your training comprises shadowing other doctors, real doctors. That's your training in medicine.
Your training comprises of a lot of things.
But you weren't in med school.
Exactly. So I am not.
I'm sorry. That was hilarious. You were in med school, and his response is exactly like that. This kid is hilarious.
Portraying as an MD. I've never said that I've gone to school to be a MD.
But the teen who goes by Dr. Love does advertise an array of treatments on his medical center website, including phototherapy, food and air therapy, and naturopathy.
I have been studying this particular field for a while. May not have been 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, but it has been long enough to, I would say, justify what I do.
Including apparently treating the elderly. In a criminal complaint, an 86-year-old woman said he recently treated her for severe stomach pain, paying him nearly $3,500.
What services did you provide in exchange for that money?
I can tell you this. Accusations are merely accusations. And services, you'd have to define that. Whether she paid for me to just show up, that's up to her.
You're not denying.
This kid is actually terrible. And just seeing this video right now, this sounds crazy. You tell me your take. I've represented people who had multi-million-dollar Ponzi schemes, and he has the same demeanor and characteristic, hubris, arrogance of all of those people who think that they're smarter than everyone else. What is just your take on this interview as it relates to his personality and what you see with people who commit these types of fraud?
I mean, I just think it's everything he's saying is false. I mean, first of all, if you have a PhD and you're in a medical setting, you actually are not supposed to call yourself doctor because it confuses people when you're in a medical facility. So actually saying that I could be a physicist and be doctor and to put doctor and to advertise medical services is fraud in the inducement. So you are still committing fraud, even if you had a PhD in physics and were holding yourself out to do medical services. So, I mean, it's weird. He seems ill. Like it's not normal.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to somebody in the chat. Hey, AA Legal Focus. Hey, if y'all want some good attorney content, she be diving deeper dives than I do. She get into depositions, testimony, all of that stuff. Y'all make sure y'all go check out. And if you go over there, check out, just tell her that Marcus DFD sent you over there. Now, we're going to get to these comments as well, but I agree with this, your statements 100%. Let's go and finish up this video. One thing I want to say before we start this video, when it comes to professionals, and we're going to talk about this, is two things that are important. It's fraud to fraudulently engage in the practice of a profession, but as Amber said, it's also fraud to hold yourself out as if you can justifiably and legally engage in that profession. If I fake like I'm a doctor, I could never see a patient, but if I'm holding it out to give people the impression that I'm a medical doctor, I have satisfied the elements essentially to prove that, hey, I'm committing a fraud. So just keep that in the back of your mind, because we about to get into a story where we got to really dive into that.
Denying the fact that she paid you $3,500 or so, correct?
No, I am denying that.
Are you a fraud? Because it seems like everything you're saying to me is either evasive or an outright lie.
I don't appreciate your tone. I don't appreciate the way you're portraying this interview to actually be.
And then a moment we didn't expect.
Are you in big trouble? I mean, it seems like you've spoken to a lawyer who's prepared you to talk not only to the media, but the police as well.
I don't know where you're receiving this information from, but it is inaccurate. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut this interview short. I'm going to have to cut this interview short.
And in fact, he did, walking out the door.
Now, we have a standing offer to Malachi to finish that interview. The teen has not yet been arraigned, but insisted throughout the interview he has done nothing wrong. He has also said that when all this clears up, he intends to open another clinic. Amy, George?
That's just insane. Real quick, I thought this story was interesting, and I was like, I wonder what became of this kid right here. I thought this story was interesting. Let me go ahead and pull this article up, because we got to check out what has Malachi, aka Dr. Love, been up to recently. And I just want to share this article so we can dive in and see what's going on. All right, this is from BuzzFeed. This is in 2023. The man who spent 3.5 years, the man who spent 3.5 years in jail for posing as a doctor when he was 18 years old and became a meme for it is going back to prison after he pled guilty to stealing more than $10,000 from his employer. Malachi Love Robinson, 25, was sentenced to more than 28 months in prison last week after pleading guilty to grand theft, organized scheme to defraud, according to court documents. According to court documents, in 2020, Love Robinson was working for the United States of Freight, where he instructed customers to pay directly to an account registered under his name on a Venmo and PayPal instead of one administered to the company. He pulled the frontier. He essentially sounded like he pulled the frontier. Dan O'Sullivan, the owner of United States Freight, discovered Love Robinson's scheme after he contacted the customers for payment. According to the text obtained by the court, Love Robinson admitted to taking the payments directly after O'Sullivan confronted him. I swear I wasn't thinking, and I will make it right. Love Robinson texted O'Sullivan, I get these compulsive stages and to do things without thinking. I'm sure that when he goes to court, his attorney probably does have to request a forensic eval. I think that just watching that interview and his demeanor, it could be plausible that he really has no understanding of what the legal process may or may not be. I'm sure whoever represented him actually had that done. Typically, if you have a client and you suspect that that client may have some cognitive defects where they may not understand the legal process, what they're charged with, what your role is, you having a duty as an attorney to request a court to do a forensic evaluation where they'll have a professional come, and that professional evaluates whether that person has the capacity to actually proceed to trial because they know what's going on. So I'm sure that that was done. I'm assuming his attorney was competent in whoever represented him. But that's actually a terrible story because on the doctor side, there's a lot of harm that could be done to people trying to provide them some type of help physically. But on the other side is like, damn, it's a young dude who appears to be continuously throwing his life away. Yeah. What a rare teen. He really shouldn't have agreed to this interview. His reputation is ruined. I agree with that 100%. I agree with that 100%. Let me backtrack some of these comments. Then we're going to get into this main story that we're going to talk about. It was a few questions. Can lawyers be disbarred for using AI? It seems like people have not learned. Is this one you want to take? You want to jump in on, Amber, or what? Let me know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so we can't be disbarred for using AI. Although what I will say is it would be very difficult to use AI to do a whole case as an attorney. There's just a lot of things that you have to put together, arguments that you have to put together that, Chat GPT is just not able to make. Of course, you can use AI to look up certain cases and certain precedent and, certain arguments. But I mean, me and DebtFree Dad have both been in trials. I know I've done over 100 trials. I think he's probably done about the same. And when you're under the gun and the judge is asking you things and you're in front of the jury, you got to be on top of it. So using ChatGPT or some other AI wouldn't really be substantive. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. There was actually a study, a former professor of mine is big into AI and the legal aspects, and they actually tried to use AI to draft the legal brief. Before you go to court most times and argue, judges don't want to just hear two people argue. They'll say, submit briefs to the court. You submit a writing saying what your argument is. Opposition submits a writing saying what their argument is. Judges read them. Then you come in and make their arguments. And they use AI to create a brief. And AI was able to construct a legal argument, but it was so many defects and deficiencies when it came to citing laws that were updated. A lot of the laws were updated. They were no longer new laws. Laws get created all the time. Amber and I have probably collectively seen in our career laws and statutes that have been around for hundreds of years. And when I come work on a case, I think of an argument that hasn't been thought of before in the organization. That's just kind of what it is. So I don't think that you can use AI to get help in some capacity to point you in the right. It's like Google. You know what I mean? It's kind of, that's how I look at it. I think AI is kind of like Google. If it's a legal topic that I may not be too familiar with, I could generally Google it to see like, okay, where do I need to look? But if you solely rely on that, you're going to be a broke ass lawyer or lose a lot of cases or both. That's kind of my take on it. All right, real quick, let's see. We had a few other comments I wanted to just get on. Let's see. Okay. Is that just saying you and your co-host that the problem is the test, not the test taker who decided to cheat, but you want to hold students to a high standard and they can't cheat on their test? I don't know. What do you think? Because I know you mentioned the cheating. If you don't want your students to cheat, you got these teachers cheat. So what would your feedback be on that comment?
I mean, teachers are definitely role models, right? But I'm hoping that the test that the students are taking is a fair test based on their, based on what they've learned in the class, versus what it sounds like this sort of certification is kind of irrelevant and separate and apart. So obviously, I don't recommend that these people cheat. I'm just saying that instead of putting them in jail, right, or prosecuting the case, that we maybe look into the test to see what we can do to prevent these things. As a prosecutor, actually, which is why I always recommend prosecutors. I know DebtFree Dad was a public defender, but as a prosecutor, you do have a lot of leeway in what you prosecute and what you don't, and what you, there's a lot of cases I've had kids who speed and wreck something. I'm not going to give them a charge that's going to haunt them for the rest of their life when they just got their license, right? I'm going to give them driver's school. I'm going to give them the opportunity to fix it so that this is not something that's going to go on their permanent record. And so as a prosecutor, I would choose to do what they call like an alternate disposition. And so that's always possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. And let's just let's step back from professions, okay? I told a story once on this channel. My son is like a computer geek. He's a STEM guy. And during COVID, it was like his freshman year. And him and some of his chucklehead friends thought it would be smart to like, hey, let's hack into the school's computer system. Now, they didn't go in there and give themselves A's. They didn't go in there and do anything, but they were in there just kind of fiddling around. Took them forever to figure it out. The school was like, yo, he didn't go in there and change anything. And the fact that it took us so long to figure it out, the boy got some talent. Some of the best inventions, the best preventative mechanisms we had are from people who once did the wrong thing and now we're using them as an asset. So just because you do the wrong thing in an instance, one we can see if we talk about the feds, I don't know if you all remember, but it was Frank Abagnale, Catch Me If You Can. They made the movie about him. He was an ultimate scammer, fake pilot, fake money, all of these things. And when he finally got caught, you know what happened? He ended up getting a job working for the feds and giving them real game on, yo, this is how these people are finessing you, but you're 10 years behind. This is what we're doing now. So I think you have to have a little bit of deference, like Amber said. Just because somebody does something wrong in an instant, it doesn't mean that it can't be potentially cured. You got to weigh all the pros and cons. You got to weigh all the pros and cons. You get rid of all of those teachers in this class, and some, let's say some of those teachers were actually performing at or above the standard. You get rid of all of those teachers, and let's say a vast majority of them came from one particular school district. Now, let's say the classroom size goes from 12 students in the class to 20 students, 30 students in the class with one teacher, because you just wiped out 20 of those teachers who were actually performing okay. So everything has an impact. You got to kind of balance it out. But I think that was a great point that you made. Let's see. Okay. It's a moral code. That's why they have to be fired. It's okay for you to fail a test. Ask for help for this test so you can keep your job. You can teach and understand. We can agree to disagree, because I see where you're going. But if you have one bright line rule, everything don't apply to everybody. You know what I mean? That's just kind of, I think, the best way to describe it. Let's see. All right, so now we're going to jump into this story where we're talking about fake professionals. So first, before we jump in, Amber, can you tell us a little bit about what does most, I'm assuming if not all, but I can only speak for the bar associations that I'm a member of in the states I'm a member of, but can you talk about, a little bit about what obligations attorneys as officers of the court have when it comes to, what may or may not be reported, what has to be reported? Because I think these apply professions across the board, but can you talk about it, how it relates to attorneys in general?
Yeah, so the attorney position, like I mentioned before, we obviously have a lot of power and we can affect someone's life or liberty. And so, not only to be an attorney do you have to have what's called a jurisprudence doctor or juris doctor. You also then, after you get that juris doctor, have to take a bar exam in one of the states and pass that bar exam. And with that bar exam, you also have to pass what's called a character and fitness background check, and also take the test. And in order to take the test, you have to get a prep course usually, which costs a lot of money, and there's lots of fees associated with it. So after doing all of that, essentially, if we run across someone else who is, pretending to be a lawyer, we have a duty to report. And, similarly to how teachers sometimes have a duty to report, like when they see child abuse, lawyers sort of have a duty to uphold the bar and uphold, the legal profession.
Right. And I I don't know if I ever told this story before. I will not give names to protect I'm not gonna say the innocent, to protect the potentially goofy. But one day as a young attorney, I'm in court and I'm waiting for my case to be called. And just so you know how it works, person gets charged with a crime, you get assigned their case just for purposes of that charge. If you work out an agreement where they get probation, you don't necessarily get the probation back. The probation can go to someone else. You just represented them on the underlying charge. But clients get it confused all the time. Oh, I had Mr. Jones on my case. He's my attorney. And the judge's like, well, no, this is a probation violation, so you got to get new counsel. So you got to understand that context. So I'm in court. They call this young woman up to, she probably maybe was mid to late 20s. And she is like, I'm here. She's having her first appearance as probation violation. And the judge goes through the paperwork and he looks and he says, oh, I see attorney X was your attorney. Now I'm standing there waiting right by the door because I'm waiting for my client's case to get called. And this lady just shouted out, I BS you now. She just shouted out, I don't want him as my attorney no more because he always want me to sleep with him. I went and turned and walked out of the door immediately. I turned and walked out. Soon as I heard where she was going, I turned and walked out of the door. I said, somebody else could report that one. I was like, I don't want to be the person who has to report that one. There's a whole bunch of other attorneys in the room. I'm going to go ahead and dip out on this and let someone else report that one. But it's actually that serious. In the back of my head, I was like, nah, there's a bunch of lawyers in here. I'll let someone else figure that out. But as an officer in the court, when we tell the court something, the court has to be able to trust that what we're saying isn't cap, is true. So in order for us to have that position, we have to act in the office as an officer of the court and conduct ourselves in a manner where our truthfulness can't be questioned. If it is, you are essentially worthless. Like there's nothing you can do for anybody if the court can't take what you say as I should be able to say, Your Honor, I actually spoke to such and such, and this is what the issue is. And the judge will be like, okay, bet, because you said it, I'm standing on it. Once you lose that, it's kind of a wrap for you as a professional. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about this story. Again, names are protected to protect the innocent and the stupid. That's what we always say here. But this story is interesting. We got this story from a source, is what we'll say. Now, when I initially heard this, I thought, damn, this is dedication. Now, I want to go ahead and pull this image on the screen because I want everybody to take a look, check out this actual image so y'all can see, because if somebody tells me, yo, my attorney hit me up and he was in the ER, but he was like, you know what, we got court in 3 days. I need to let you know this. My initial thought is going to be like, damn, bro, real dedicated. I like what he's doing. He's real dedicated. So let's go ahead just so y'all can see the image that's going to appear on the screen. All right, this is the image. Again, we put out the names and faces to protect the innocent and or stupid. Not saying which one he is. We just want to, make sure our bases are covered. But hey, as someone who's been in the ICU, y'all familiar with the channel, know my story. As soon as I saw that handle right there, I knew exactly what the deal was. I was like, yo, hospital bed, this guy's teaching. And I didn't think of it as anything that was remotely negative. I was like, yo, this is a level of dedication that I thought was like, man, I don't know. This guy is actually motivating me. Like, he motivated. I need to study this shit, was how I originally thought of it. But then as always, we got to do a little research. So we got to go online. Now, images are blocked out. Names aren't going to be blocked out because names are in the public forum. But we got to go just to take a look. Whatever you do, you can get ratings. There are ratings out there for attorneys where you can put in an attorney's name and see how they perform, see if they're 5 or 2, trash or fire. You can see all of this. So we looked at social media just to see how this professor was ranked. And again, you got to take social media with a grain of salt, because if you get good service as a restaurant, most people, won't go on and talk about how great it was. But if you get bad service, everybody likes to complain about the bad service. So let's take a look at this next image. This is an image that was on the forum that talked about this professor. So I'm going to go ahead and read it, but you all can see it on the screen. Racist, sexist commentary / stories. I have proof. I asked for an extension and he gave me the mouse and sighed so loud the whole time I was doing it. Inaccessible outside of class, super rude over text because you can't reach him via email. I'm assuming that's what they were saying. Puts wrong answers on assignments is right. That's wild. And doesn't fix them. Half of the class failed and got very low grades. I'm a glass half full type of guy. I was like, you sound like you might have just been a person who failed. So again, every situation is different. So when I saw that, my initial thoughts were, I don't know the veracity of this person who is actually putting this report up. Let's see what else is out there on the spectrum. So I'm gonna put this next message up, same forum, about the same professor at issue. Let's take a look. All right, just reading it so we can get a justification. Gave many assignments every week. It's school. You're gonna get assignments. I don't know. I'm benefit of the doubt. 6 assignments. The day of the exam, lectures don't go off slides. PowerPoints are awful. Writing is awful. Racist. Texts are impossible. No curve. Curve is giving handout to me. I'm just being honest. I don't know how you feel about that, Amber, but Curve is kind of giving handout. Can't reach them via email. Whole semester emails go to junk. Distracts you during lab. Fell asleep during the final presentation. Will make you feel bad about extensions. Hostile learning environment. Okay, so that was this. This is the first part. The other part was the second part. So we got these. Now, Amber, I want you to tell me what the account that you were told from a person with interest of how the classroom environment just was in general, of how that classroom environment was.
So my understanding from this person is that this is a biology 1 class. So there's a number of people in a biology 1 class. It could be some professionals. It could be some people 18 just out of high school, or people who are in the military, et cetera. And so, it's a mix in the class. And, this professor came to class and was extremely arrogant, immediately mentioned being a lawyer, even though this is a biology 1 class, and was very hostile, and was also in the hospital during the first Zoom lecture. And so I am like, I'll let DebtFree Dad speak, but I immediately saw red flags. I am not a glass half full person at all. I immediately identify red flags, assess them, and make a judgment.
Right. Facts. Yeah, hey, you gotta have a balance. From your conversations, did the person feel that he at least had because somebody can be a jerk, somebody can be an a-hole, but they can have a mastery of the subject matter. So sometimes in life you're gonna deal with people. I know people all the time like, yo, this guy's not cool to work with, but when he gets the work done, so you deal with it because you know the final product. Was your impression from this person, is this somebody who actually had a mastery of the knowledge, had a mastery of the information, or just kind of took it as lackadaisical, didn't take it seriously? Which one?
My understanding is that the teacher said that he was teaching biology, obviously class. However, he preferred to teach chemistry. And so instead of teaching the initial biology lesson, he taught a chemistry lesson, and actually shared his screen with the class where he pulled up slides chemistry instead of the slides biology. And also, again, this is from a hospital. So there's, nurses coming in and out, checking his IV drip, assessing his blood work. And this is all happening, as the class is going on. Notwithstanding that, I was notified that the portal, I guess, is used. There's like a portal, Canvas, Blackboard, whatever is used in the class. And it was completely I mean, it was just a mess. Nothing was organized. There was no assignments tab, exams tab. It was just a mess of assignments. And there was just all these assignments due that pertain to chemistry, because again, he preferred chemistry. And then the school required biology assignments as well. So there were both biology and chemistry assignments due for this biology 1 class.
Yeah. So this fake teacher decided to do what he wanted to do. And that's what it's sounding like. Now, I don't know. That would have pissed me off if I was sitting there. But now we're gonna take a look at we're gonna go check out the LinkedIn profile, because if you hold yourself out to be a lawyer, people are gonna look. None of this LinkedIn profile is redacted because it's LinkedIn. You can look and see, and it's public forum. If you don't want it out there, make your stuff private. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen. Let's take a look at this LinkedIn profile, because we got to look at this profile, because if someone is holding themselves out as a practitioner of law, the first thing that one is easy, because attorneys know you can look up any attorney who is barred by state to see if they're actually in good standing or not. But even if you're not an attorney and you may not know that, a general person may say, well, let me just Google it and see what pops up. So we're going to take a look at what pops up on the screen. You can see right here. Now, oh man, I jacked that up. Let's go and see what pops in. Okay, let's see if I could. Let me make this a little bit bigger, because you know your boy a little blind. We're going to make this bigger. But again, instructional designer, professor, lawyer, trained research and development manager. So generally, I'm going to tell you how this investigation is going to go. I don't know about you, Amber, but the first thing I would do is just scroll all the way down to the bottom, because I particularly would want to look at this education. I think everybody know, if you are an attorney, one thing that you have to do is actually go to law school. So, okay, let's take a look at the schools he got here. Yerevan State University, biology and chemistry. Hey, seems like a smart guy. University of Maryland Global Campus. Biotech commercialization, biotechnology, master's degree, legal profession and studies. University of Maryland Global Campus, Masters of Science, Educational Instructional Media Design. So I want to ask you, Amber, can you explain, one, what is a master's degree in legal profession and studies, and contrast that to someone actually going to a law school?
Yeah, so I mean, in short, a master's in legal studies is nothing. It's completely meaningless. It's essentially the same as getting a master's degree in basket weaving. It's not a Juris Doctor. It has different requirements. You are actually not eligible to sit for the bar in most states with a master's in legal studies. Law school is 3 years. I don't know how long this master's program was, but it's essentially a commercial degree. It looks like it's from a commercial school. So this is not a law degree at all. And it's actually probably, equivalent to maybe a paralegal certificate or something like that. It's a jurisprudence doctor is very specific. And there's very specific classes that you have to take to be a jurisprudence doctor, as well as internships and other experiential learning. And so a 1-year master's program is not going to at all be the same thing as getting a JD.
All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and pivot back to his resume. So his virtual digital resume. So you don't see anything to satisfy the education requirement. Now, I wanted to also go up and take a look at his experience real quick. And I don't know, can you see everything on the screen fine, Amber? Do I need to make it bigger? Are you good?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. I know I'm blind, so I assume everybody else is blind. So you just you just got to deal with that. All right. So just going through these positions, do you see anything that would be consistent with what he purports to be his ability to practice of law, or any job that would see, okay, this is a job where a person who's a practitioner of law could do, would do, or actually should do as someone who holds a license to practice?
So, not so far. Research assistant, graduate research assistant, associate professor. So it looks like he's been teaching, science for a while. Staff Russian interpreter, instructor for biotech at Johns Hopkins, adjunct lecturer at Maryland Community Colleges, academic consultant. Again, none of these are law related. And it looks like he's teaching mostly science. Professional lecturer at GW, where he's teaching genetics, associate professor at Northern Virginia Community College, Nova, which looks like he's been there for 12 years, which is absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable that you can pretend to be a lawyer and, that could be considered something that maybe the school looked at to hire him. I don't know.
Real quick, I want to go down to academic consultant from 2011 to 2016, 6 years, 9 months. Take a look at those bullets, especially bullet number 2.
It says analyzed and wrote critical review for business law OER class.
Yeah. I'm not seeing anything in here that would jump out as being something that you can do while you're engaged in the practice of law. So we looked at the education. Now let's go ahead and scroll up and take a look at, this is probably the meat and potatoes of it. Educated in biotechnology, management, innovative science professor, ed tech enthusiast, and lawyer with board education experience in digital androgyny and and genetics, chemistry, business, marketing, languages, patent, IP, and business law. Currently searching for exciting full-time opportunities in areas of compliance, tech, research and development, management, curriculum design, and training in biotech or adjunct fields. Ability to review legal, scientific, and business perspective issues, knowledge of patent, IP, statutes, including Lee Smith, health, tort, injury law, business contract, privacy law. What if do you see in here that jumps out is it's probably going to be a problematic, and it probably is going to put you in a position where you might be looking at a maximum of 12 months in custody?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that, we look at, attorneys look at, prosecutors look at is, the consumer confusion test, right? Whether a run-of-the-mill person, a consumer, would read this and think that this is an advertisement from an attorney at law, somebody who's licensed to practice law. And right here, you can see, that he's saying he's a lawyer with broad educational skills. He's advertising his ability to review legal and business perspective issues. He's advertising his ability to do health, tort, and injury law and patent and IP law, which is a very specific area of the law that requires a lot of information. And I think this doesn't it doesn't pass the sniff test. This looks like he's an attorney. If I didn't know any better, if I didn't know you needed a Juris Doctor, if I didn't know you needed a bar passage, I think he was an attorney.
Right. I agree. I'm looking at the bottom, multiple successful background checks, multi-state, multi-juris databases. I'm gonna be honest, even that language is given language that you normally hear when you are talking about somebody who practices law. DOJ, OPM, FBI, DHS, and HireRight.com. Okay, so now that we know, hey, this is what this teacher has going on. This is the background. I apologize. I done jacked the screen up. That's where I wanted to go to. Now that we know what's going on, I want to pull up. First, let's talk about the statute, and we'll read the statute as we read this letter. But let's go. Let me go ahead and get the slides together first. Let me pull up the letter that I want you to see so you all can understand, one, why is this being taken so seriously? And I'm going to put it on the screen, and I'll ask if you can do the honors of reading what we have on the screen. Give me 1 second. it's kind of annoying when I got so many screens up. You can only have one screen up at a time. So I gotta. Let's see. All right. You want to do the honors of reading the letter? What is the letter? Go ahead. Talk about what this letter is, what they're saying, and you go ahead. I'm gonna pass it on to you. Go ahead, co-counsel.
So essentially, someone has now reported him to the Virginia State Bar, which is essentially, like I was mentioning about, you have to pass the bar in a state. And so the state's bar is the one who presides over, who can practice law and who's not practicing law and who's practicing law, in an unauthorized way. And so you can actually file a report with the state bar saying someone is, engaged in the unauthorized practice of law. And so this is essentially a letter that was sent to this this professor from the bar, explaining essentially what the issue is. So I'll read it. It says, "Dear Mr. Anian, encloses a copy of a complaint filed with this office. The complaint alleges that you are engaged in the practice of law by holding yourself out to be a, quote, lawyer in person on LinkedIn and on the syllabus for the class you teach at Northern Virginia Community College. According to the complaint and attached documentation, your LinkedIn profile states that you are a, quote, lawyer with experience in, quote, patent, IP, and business law, and that you have the ability to review legal, scientific, and business perspectives of issues." That was a quote. "And your LinkedIn profile also alludes to experience with, quote, health tort injury law, business, contract, privacy law, and employment law. All of this is allegedly being done despite the fact that you are not licensed to practice law in Virginia. Part 6, Section 1 and 2 of the Rules of the Supreme Court of Virginia defines the practice of law in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Section 54.1-3904 of the Code of Virginia makes it a crime for a person to engage in the practice of law when they are not duly qualified or authorized to do so. A criminal conviction under this statute is a Class 1 misdemeanor. The rule prohibiting unauthorized practice of law states," and then it kind of goes through the excerpt from the law, and it says, "No non-lawyer shall engage in the practice of law in the Commonwealth of Virginia or in any manner hold himself or herself out as authorized or qualified to practice law in the Commonwealth of Virginia, except as may be authorized by rule or statute." The term non-lawyer means any person, firm, association, or corporation not duly licensed or authorized to practice law in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Any person or entity who practices law without being licensed or otherwise authorized to practice law shall be guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. And then the last paragraph just says, "I am Assistant Ethics Counsel and responsible for the investigation of complaints alleging unauthorized practice of law. This letter is to serve as notice that your activity is under investigation by this office. If you are in fact a lawyer licensed to practice in Virginia or any other state or country, we ask that you let us know the details of your licensure right away. If you are not a lawyer, we ask that you review the unauthorized practice of law rules so that you do not continue to put yourself at risk." And then it gives the rules and a link to it.
All right. So now let me ask you a few questions. They cited what the rule is. And one thing that we do as attorneys is we have to look and say, okay, in order for a person to be guilty of first-degree murder, it has to be an unlawful killing of another with malice or forethought, premeditation, all these types of things. Every law has certain elements. This one is really simple. Can you break down, one, what would need to be done to prove this? Or is this something that's literally like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think this is pretty simple to prove, right? You would need an advertisement. If someone's saying that they can practice law and, they're exchanging money for services, you need their advertisement or some sort of proof of, them holding themselves out. And I mean, I don't know. I think that's about it. I mean, I don't know what else you need to prove, especially, when you look at the facts here, where you looked at this LinkedIn profile, you looked at, his degrees and what he's saying that he can do. And then if he's holding himself out as a lawyer in this class where he's telling a bunch of people that he doesn't even know, that he's a lawyer, not realizing that, you don't actually know, who these people are.
Right, right. And I think a point that I wanted to make is like back in the day, because like the Dr. Love said, hey, I shadowed a lot of people. Back in the day, actually in some places like North Carolina where I used to practice at, there actually maybe not now. There may be one or two dinosaurs left where people back in the day were actually allowed to have professional positions by virtue of apprenticeship. They in North Carolina, when I was practicing, they were judges. These judges were like a gazillion years old, but there were a few judges who did not go to law school, did not pass a bar exam, but they came up in a time where if you got enough experience under a licensed practitioner, by proxy and default, you can practice. There's actually a reason that method kind of phased itself out. They was like, you know what, we can't do this no more because there's so much exposure. Now, I think one of the questions would be for me is the punishment for something like this. You're like, well, how much time could it be? Is a class 1 misdemeanor in Virginia, a class 1 misdemeanor, essentially how it works is the highest level or the most severe sanction for a misdemeanor. The higher your number, the lower the sanction. If you're at a 1, you can get the worst possible sanction, maximum of 12 months in custody and or fines of, I think, a maximum of $2,500. Now, if you're looking at this as a prosecutor, because you are the one with the prosecutor experience, I'm just going to be honest. Even though I'm not a defense attorney now, I tend to look at things from a defense attorney's eyes because that's how I was cut my teeth. I don't see anything that I could do just from a defense standpoint from this, is because the key word is unauthorized practice of law or hold yourself out as an attorney. Once you see or hold yourself out as attorney and you put it in a public medium on your social media, you got too much knowledge and too much, all these degrees, you don't think you can't tell me you don't know how to read and can't make an inference based on how you wrote this. So I don't see anything from a defense attorney. But if you're looking at this and you know that, I got this guy, he could be looking at 12 months, 12 years. 12, that's how long he been at school, which is wild. But he could be looking at 12 months in custody. How would you make a determination on how you would pursue this? Should it be probation? Should he get a split sentence, some time in custody? What would be the factors you would look at as a prosecutor to determine how it would go?
I mean, I think we definitely can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this crime has been committed, right? And so a lot of times what prosecutors look for is what they call matters in aggravation and mitigation. So matters in aggravation is essentially like, how is this made worse or better? So if he was a pillar of the community and was giving out money to kids and was a great person and, was overall benefit to society, that would be a matter in mitigation. A matter in aggravation would be if we were able to pinpoint what companies he worked with, what individuals he worked with, where he traded services for money and how much money he frauded these people out of, because it is fraud, right? If you're saying you're a lawyer and I'm going to provide you with legal advice and then they give you $1,000 or $2,000 under the, suspicion that you are a licensed attorney and you're in fact not an attorney at all, now you've committed fraud. I know in Illinois, at least, if I think it's over $500 or over $1,000, it becomes a felony if you steal that much money from a store, for example. And so I would look at those factors to see how many people he defrauded, how long has this been up? He's working for this school. He's been there for 12 years, according to his LinkedIn, and he's been saying these things, I'm sure, for 12 years or for however long, since he got the master's in legal studies. And so, it would really depend on the investigation. It would depend on if you were able to track down some of these people who apparently, traded services for money.
Okay. Now, let me ask with that, let's say during the course of their investigation, because I agree with you, I think it's beyond a reasonable doubt he kind of screwed, but we're talking about mitigating and aggravating factors. How would you consider would this fact be mitigating or aggravating during the investigation, we identified 2 businesses that he did some type of legal review for. There was an exchange in cash. Let's say they paid him $5,000 collectively. One company A, $2,000, company B, $3,000. He reviewed some intellectual property law, tort law matters, and gave them some legal opinion. The outcome was actually favorable to the company. Okay, let's say that whatever he did, he didn't get up. He didn't mess it up. The outcome was actually favorable. How would you look at that? Is aggravating, mitigating? What are your thoughts?
I think it's definitely aggravating. Just because it's a no harm, no foul, right, doesn't mean that it's not problematic. It's still fraud. It's fraud in the inducement, right? These people were induced to hire him and give him money because he said he was a lawyer. Had he not been a lawyer, they probably would not have given him the money. And so now these people are out of this amount of money. And who knows if they would have actually went to an actual attorney, if they would have got different advice, or if they would have gotten advice that would have helped better their company. In this instance, they've paid money for a service that they didn't receive. They asked for legal advice and they didn't get one from an attorney. They got legal advice from a non-lawyer.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I don't think the outcome is irrelevant. It's like I did a story one day and I actually called my father on the live stream. It was a nurse who was giving her patients medication, but she was like twerking on top of their heads while she's dropping the medication. So I called my pops, and my pops said exactly what I knew he would say. He's like, "Hey, she's trying to help me out." And I said, everything is fine and dandy until she slip, fall on your head, and fracture your damn C3 and C4 vertebrae. You know what I mean? Just because the outcome wasn't bad, doesn't mean necessarily that the act was in fact justified. So I definitely agree with you on that. I think the last question I have on this, and I'll chime in, but I want your opinion first. The school hired this guy. This guy's been working there for 12 years. He's probably been holding himself out. What are your thoughts on, one, is there any type of potential sanction that could be held against the school for something like this? I know it may depend on how the advertisement was written up, what he was actually hired to do, but what are your thoughts on potential exposure for the actual school itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if he's found guilty of this and the school continues to allow him to teach and put that he's a lawyer on the syllabus, and and he still got the school name on his LinkedIn, I think that they can potentially be held liable for aiding and abetting unauthorized practice of law. The other thing is, I think the Department of Education should probably look into this, because I wonder if he told the school he was a lawyer in order to get hired at the school. I know I used to be a community college teacher several years ago, and back then you needed a doctorate degree in order to teach, not a master's. And so because I was a Juris Doctor, that counted as a doctor, and they requested transcripts. Actually, my law school had to give them the transcripts directly. They had to look at each class. They had to determine, on their own if I received the JD. And so I don't know how this school is vetting this. If they think he's a lawyer and he's not, I don't know how that happened. And so I think the Department of Education should step in here.
Right. And I can tell you, in a previous life, I worked at the Department of Education Office of Inspector General. So I've seen this in a lot of arenas. Healthcare fraud, where you have people who have bogus certifications, bogus credentials. One of the main things is fraud can be the inclusion of a material important fact or the exclusion of a material fact. So the fact that he included or he excluded, he didn't tell them that they were an attorney. The fact that he didn't tell them they were an attorney, the fact that he told them he was one when he wasn't, both in fact are false statements. Now there could be some type of exposure, because normally you see false statements when there's a false statement to a government entity, but laws are very liberal. Sometimes in certain situations, an entity that receives federal funding can be qualified as a federal entity because they are essentially a grantor-grantee relationship. And when you have a grantor-grantee relationship, sometimes acts that's done by the contract holder if you have a contract with the federal government, certain claims can be brought against you that you've done because of that relationship. So that is something that's completely possible. In a perfect world, what would you do if you can't identify any potential clients that got compensation regardless of the outcome? What would you do in that situation versus if you actually identify clients where you got compensation? Where would you fall on prosecuting this? You making them sit down? You got to get a toothbrush ready or what?
I mean, if I can find people that he actually defrauded, he's definitely going to jail. I'm asking for 6 months at least, and that's me being nice. If we can't find any companies that he defrauded, probation probably, but it would be what's called a contingent. At least in Illinois, it's called a CD. I think it's called like a conditional discharge, meaning like he can't do anything to supplement this to get out of it. It is going to be on his permanent record that he has this misdemeanor offense, and he'll have to report it. Like, you know, when you get an apartment, you have to report if you have a criminal record. He'll have to report it everywhere he goes. He'll have to report it when he works at schools. And so I would really hone in on that. I think if we can't find anybody that he defrauded, then, you know, I don't know that jail time is going to be possible. Although I think him working in the education system is an aggravating factor personally.
I agree, and I'm just looking at it from a commonsensical standpoint. If I'm a prosecutor and I went to law school and did all the work, and I'm a judge sitting on the bench and I went to law school and did all the work, I'm gonna be honest, like, hey, let me break up my dad. How dare you? I'll break up my guy. I'm like, how dare you had the audacity to come in here and be a poser, bro? Like, literally, it would actually drive me crazy. I'm like, boom, 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 boom. No, like, no. If the plea came in too nice, honestly, if I were a judge, I would actually probably be inclined not to accept it. Like, you need to continue this and put it in front of another judge who would go to accept it, because it's not that a harm wasn't done if you can't find somebody. It's the potential risk of a harm that was there. And I analogize that the same way with the dentist. And I think this is different. I think this falls in line with the veneer text, Dr. Love, because this is a situation where he doesn't even have the requisite education to sit for the certification. So that's one of the things that I talked about, why I distinguish it from when we're looking at the situation with the teachers. They, at a minimum, have at least the valid education credentials to sit for certification. Now, they may not have been able to pass it, but at least they have the qualifications to sit for it. And that is one of those factors that I'm looking at and why I'm judging these cases differently, in my opinion. Let me take a look at this comment. No consideration of his mental health. What are your thoughts on that, Amber?
I mean, listen, everyone has mental health problems to a certain extent, right? Every single criminal that comes through if you're a prosecutor, everyone's going to claim, oh, I did it because of my mental health. I stole these things from Target because I'm poor. I raped this individual because I got raped, right? There's this continuation of, these are the traumas that I face and these are the outcomes. But we still have to hold people accountable, and we still have to hold people to the law. If every single time we consider someone's mental health, right, we're not talking about a person that's insane. We're talking about a person who is able to coherently, somewhat, teach a chemistry class, who's been teaching for 12 years, right? We're talking about a person who has a master's degree in biochemistry. We're talking about a person who's had all this schooling and has gotten all these educational roles. His mental health was good enough to do that for all those years. And so why now, when he should be held accountable for not violating the law, should we focus on his mental health? Is he institutionalized? No.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I wanted to pull something up because I actually talked about this before. I can't remember. Let me see. I can't remember what video where I talked about this. But and shout out to everybody in the chat. I see my brother Wolverine in here, R. Royster, Floyd Turner. So shout out to everybody in the chat. But it was a video where, for some reason, I covered insanity defense. And they have a standard uniform code rule, and then some places use the M. Norton test. And I just wanted to pull one up. Like, when you're talking about mental health, isn't that like, yo, there's a specific legal standard for you to there's a specific legal standard for you to not move forward with a legal proceeding. Your mental health isn't something that's a mitigating factor. It's more of we're going to evaluate your mental health, and you either understand what you're doing in the process and my role and everybody's role in this. If you understand that, you can move forward. You could actually have some mental health issues, but you're still competent to proceed and move forward. And I'm going to just read real quick. I'm not even going to pull it up on the screen. Let me see. All right. Let's see. Okay, some of the things, this is just one of the tests for insanity. The M. Norton test. Some states use the uniform code, some use the M. Norton. It says, did this person understand the nature and quality of the act? And did they have knowledge that the act was wrong? With strict language like that, with this guy's educational background, with him teaching for 12 years, bro, you have the capacity to know what was right and what was wrong. You're smart enough to understand everybody's role in this proceeding. Even if you have some remnants of a cognitive defect, it wouldn't rise to a level where it would force the court, me as the judge, to do something and you can't move forward at trial. And it's actually inappropriate for me as a judge to say, well, because he has mental health, I'm going to give him some. Because once you go down that road, that's a crazy road to go down. You don't think people who doing drive-bys have some type of mental health thing? Like, you can't start helping. It either meets the standard where the court has to take this action and we can't proceed, or it doesn't. It's just a this or that thing. Some areas, they can't be gray areas. That's kind of my take on it. Yep. But hey, I think this was a very interesting discussion. Again, shout out to everybody in the chat. And yo, Amber, I want to give you a huge thanks, because I used to have guests on like every other Friday, and I just kind of got into this solo thing. So it was good having you on here as co-counsel. I'm really appreciative, grateful, and I'm just going to say, I'm going to keep it a buck with you. I respect you as a practitioner of law, because I know that you are far, you would make me work for it. I would just leave it at that. And most people, I'm just telling you right now, that's what they're going to get if you go to trial with me. With you, I would probably have to study, because you're very detail oriented, and you were a blessing to be able to be on the channel. So shout out to you and your analysis of what we went through. Before we get out of here, I want you to go ahead and give your church announcements. I'm going to go ahead real quick, throw up this banner so you all can check out her link tree, get to her content, check out her book. Yo, a book on how to become a millionaire. I've been talking about that for years. 2 people were watching the videos. Now start reacting to Diddy trial and everybody want to watch it. Yo, focus on your bag. Amber, go ahead, take it away so we can get out of here.
Yeah, thank you all. If you all want me back, go ahead and put W chat.
Hey, shout out W chat. Shout out W chat.
Gotta say W chat.
Right.
No, thanks everybody. Yeah, I have 5 published books. So one of them is about how to become a millionaire. So definitely check that out. Check out my Bigger Pockets Money interview, and got some W's. My Bigger Pockets Money interview, and just see what's to come. It'll be interesting to see where I go from here. Definitely going to start keep practicing law, and I want to definitely keep honing my legal skills. Becoming a lawyer was probably, one of the best things I've ever done. I absolutely love it every single day. And so, yeah, that's all. Thank you, DebtFree Dad, for inviting me.
Hey, again, I'm appreciative. You got a lot of love in the chat as well. So, hey, thank you for coming on. And I've been trying to convince her, like, yo, you got to get on this stuff and put some content out. Like, we got to get these perspectives. Isn't that too many people? Like, I'll be honest, I'm kind of stingy. Like, I was like, man, if I invite another attorney on the show, I think highly of you and I probably rock with you. But hey, y'all get on her. She need to put out some content because I think she has a great legal mind, your opinion and take on things. And you just got like she be putting me on to like travel hacks and things I don't even know about. Saving your boy. Like real talk. I gotta give her some credit here. And I don't really do this. I might actually edit this part out. I might actually edit this part out. I fancy myself as someone who's very financially savvy. And in the time that I've known her, some gems she's gave me has significantly impacted my net worth for a positive. And you're talking to somebody who put his whole debt-free journey on the internet, went through my net worth at times, budgets, paying off bills. She has given me some gems that allow me to see a significant difference in my overall net worth. So, hey, salute to you. Thank you for being on, and hopefully we can have you back one day. Shout out to everybody in the chat as well. Y'all be blessed and have a good one. Stay safe. Peace.